What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday we saw a pretty big shift in gaming that has to do with Kojima Productions and a certain game that for a while has been a PlayStation console exclusive, at least up till yesterday when they made a bit of a surprise reveal, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Nintendo and a next-gen strategy that they've now shared that seems to put more and more of an emphasis on third-party companies than ever before with the company. And WP Gaming, they've been struggling a bit here, and now they've kind of laid out some groundwork and plans going forward to try to turn things around, and it's gonna be pretty obvious to many of us since it mostly has to do with making games that you actually want to buy. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members of the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're going to start today with Call of Duty Warzone. Obviously, once the new Call of Duty launches, people then look around and start wondering when Warzone will release, that being the free-to-play Battle Royale game. And now we have a date, which we can see. This is over on PlayStation blog, but it was kind of a press release that went out everywhere, and then some of the console manufacturers also put out information for it. But we can see, it says Call of Duty Warzone full Black Ops 6 integration. Season 1 brings the Pick 3 perk system, weapons, wildcards, omni movement, global weapon builds, and much more as Black Ops 6 fully integrates with Call of Duty Warzone. Plus, keep an eye out for the rare specialist perk package, granting all perks and sure, all that stuff. But it is actually releasing next week on the 14th. All right, so it usually comes out a few weeks after the big Call of Duty game for the year release with multiplayer, this time being Black Ops 6, and people are getting a kick out of this game, and it is probably one of the best Call of Duty games I've played in quite some time. So that integration over to an incredibly popular mode with Warzone should actually be pretty awesome. So I do like to play Warzone from time to time with some of the guys from the podcast and stuff. So I think it'll be a good time, and I'm looking forward to actually diving in next week when it releases. Also, we had a pretty major feature release for Steam the other day. We can see this is the entire page for it here, and it's game recording. So this is actually built into Steam just natively. You wouldn't need OBS or something else open when you're playing your games. This is just built right in, and they actually have quite a bit happening here with just recording, replay, clips, and share. And what's really cool is they have this timeline feature that will be at the bottom of your clips that you have, your recordings, and you can drop markers showing when different events happen, whether it's maybe an achievement that you earned or some really big cool thing happens in a match. You can just have a little tag there so it's easy to find again, and them having to clip and share all of this from within Steam. It's actually pretty awesome. You can also pick where everything goes. It's Steam Deck verified, so the game recording is fully functional there on their handheld device. It's actually pretty awesome, and it continues to highlight why so many people just stick with Steam, because it's such a robust platform that you even now have just recording built into it. For the longest time, Epic Game Store didn't even have a shopping cart. So yeah, Steam just continues to have more and more features piled on, this being the latest one with game recording. Oh, and yesterday we randomly had a demo release for Dead Rising Deluxe Remastered, just kind of out of nowhere on the different storefronts. We can see this over on Gamatsu, though. They say the demo lets you play from the start of Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. However, some aspects may differ from the full version. I assume they may wall you off from certain events or things happening, since most likely they'll just let you run around the mall and probably just chop up zombies and that kind of thing. I don't know if it's going to be, hey, you can do an entire run or even part of a run. Unfortunately, it says save data from the demo cannot be transferred to the full game, which I like the idea of demos kind of getting you set up at the beginning of a game. And Dead Rising, it takes a little bit of time to get going, but still, that'd be kind of cool. It is available PS5, Xbox Series, and PC on Steam. So if you've been curious about it, it is definitely worth downloading the demo, I'd say. But I've had a blast with the Deluxe Remastered. The 360 version was such a moment in time that was so interesting back then. And it was fun to relive that here with better visuals and some quality of life improvements recently with this Deluxe Remaster. So I do recommend it, but if you're curious, the demo's there, go and give it a try. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with some surprising news yesterday with Kojima Productions dropping Death Stranding Director's Cut on the Xbox Series platform. Now, they had originally released this into Game Pass PC, but it was not available on the Xbox, and it was pretty obvious why. Sony had a hand in the Death Stranding intellectual property, so while 505 was there and they published on PC, it still was something that Sony was willing to block from Xbox. but not the case at this time. And you might be wondering, okay, how is that possible? How are they able to get Death Stranding on the Xbox? Well, it turns out Sony doesn't own the intellectual property anymore. It seems like they've sold whatever stake they had in it to Kojima Productions. We can see this is posted up. This is over on Automaton website where it appeared that like the press release was issued and stuff. This is translated saying, in addition, that being to the release of Death Stranding Director's Cut on the Xbox, Kojima Productions announced that the IP for this work will belong to the studio. They said that they will continue to connect more fans around the world in various forms of entertainment. Hideo Kojima's comments on the release of the Xbox Series X and S version are as follows. We are finally able to deliver Death Stranding to Xbox users. Thank you to all the fans who have continued to connect with us up to this point. And to all the Xbox users who have continued to wait, Kojima Productions Death Stranding will continue to connect more game fans around the world, so please look forward to it. I believe this is also an Xbox Play Anywhere title, so if you buy it on the Xbox, it'll also be available through the Xbox app on PC. I actually had a code sent over basically when this went live, and I checked it out. I'll record some gameplay footage very quickly so you can get a quick look at it here. And for the most part, I played through Death Stranding on the PS4. I played it again on the PS5 with the Director's Cut, and I do enjoy this game quite a bit, but it's a very different game, and it actually took a while to grow on me. I seriously, it was like 15 or 20 hours where I had that aha moment going through it, and it is a genuinely different, very, very unique gameplay style. So understand that, but also understand if you spend time with it, and especially if you have like a very nice setup with a surround sound, nice display and everything, it is going to pay off more that way. But like the story and stuff is pretty interesting as you go through it, and because of all this, I'm very interested with Death Stranding 2 on the beach. In fact, now seeing that Kojima Productions just owns Death Stranding, it's not tied to a platform holder anymore, which means the Decima engine is probably going to continue making the rounds. Think about that for a minute. The Decima engine is now on the Xbox, Sony's engine. Well, also, think about this for a moment. I have to imagine that Kojima Productions is thinking, oh wow, let's see where else we can get Death Stranding. Is it possible that this game, 6 years maybe later from when it originally released, comes out on Nintendo's next platform? Also very possible. I don't think anything's off the table here for Kojima Productions with Death Stranding, because it is now in their best interest to grow this IP, this brand, as much as possible. So get it everywhere you can. It also makes me wonder about Death Stranding 2, and if there are some plans being formulated in the background as to maybe there's a timed exclusive on PlayStation 5 and a year later it shows up on Xbox and Nintendo and everywhere else. Or is it something they could figure out how to release day one on other platforms? I'm going to assume it's timed exclusive for now on PlayStation, but who knows at this point? I certainly wasn't expecting to randomly wake up and there being an Xbox version of Death Stranding Director's Cut, but here we are, and it's interesting going forward as to how far Kojima Productions is going to push this thing. How many sequels are they going to build this out into an entire world where they have spin-offs and stuff? So interesting stuff here, but Kojima Productions quietly growing in the background. They have many projects happening right now. Microsoft, obviously working with Overdose, and they have 2 projects currently, Death Stranding 2, and then their Fizzant at Sony, and they just keep getting a bit bigger every single year. So the future for Kojima Productions is very, very interesting, and we'll be following that quite a bit. Next up, let's talk about WB Games and some recent struggles, specifically with Multiversus, but just in general with them. We can see this is posted up. This is over on IGN, saying, speaking in a recent financial call, Warner Bros. Discovery President and CEO David Zaslav and Chief Financial Officer Gunnar Wedenfels said Multiversus' failure had added another $100 million to the $200 million write-down that the company's games business had already suffered earlier this year. During the same financial call, Warner Bros. Said it's now doubling down on 4 games: Hogwarts Legacy, which is the sequel, is already in the works, Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, and DC, in particular, Batman, Zaslav said. Warner Bros. Recently published VR Batman game Batman Arkham Shadow, which I've heard is very, very good. Sean and MVG seem to like it quite a bit, exclusively on the MetaQuest 3. It has a Wonder Woman game in the works at Monolith Productions, saying, quote, "We are focusing our development efforts on those core franchises with proven studios to improve our success ratio." And as I mentioned many, many times before, as we go along here and the budgets get larger and larger and larger, you're going to see these companies take less and less risk. In this case, hey, what sells? Batman. Yeah, go figure. We saw what happened with Hogwarts Legacy. Let's make a sequel to that. Okay, Mortal Kombat. Let's queue up another one. You know, Batman, the thing with this is they did Suicide Squad kill the Justice League to, I don't know, break away from the mold of these Arkham games. But the Arkham games sold, they reviewed well, and while they were predictable, like we knew what we were getting into with them, we liked that. So that's the thing, you don't have to recreate, you don't have to break the mold every time with these games. Now, I will say, if they do another Batman game, if they want to change things up at least a little bit, I think it'd be perfect to do Batman Beyond. I think it'd be really cool. I think the technology is there with currently the PS5 and Xbox Series. Who knows when it comes out now? It might be into the next generation with how long these games take to make. But I just think that could be a really, really interesting thing to see. And I guess it'd be Rocksteady making it. Rocksteady's turned over staff so much now. The people who are running it are gone. Who knows what they would put out? But if they stick to a formula that's already been just about mastered with the previous Arkham games, at least they have an idea as to the direction of it, rather than trying to do multiplayer stuff. So yeah, in this case, WB Games, while we see what happened with Multiversus, which free-to-play, I think in general, with the monetization strategy, needs an overhaul. They need to figure things out here. The Battle Pass, the microtransactions, the cosmetics, I think it's getting a bit stale. Like, we already know what to expect and what to look for when we go into these free-to-play games, and I think because of that, if it's not over-the-top compelling, people just aren't going to spend money on it. I think that's one of the major issues. There's a reason Fortnite spends a stupid amount of money for those crossovers. It's not for fun. It's because they know they have to go above and beyond in the free-to-play market to bring in money from people playing the game otherwise just for free. So yeah, I think in this case, WB double down on the obvious stuff for this development cycle with Hogwarts, Mortal Kombat, they say Game of Thrones, and obviously Batman, and then double back and reevaluate and see what you want to put the money into after you release some successful titles there. Next up, let's talk about Nintendo, with more information coming out of that investors briefing, as they had explanatory details and a report that just basically went over everything happening right now in Nintendo's ecosystem and in these graphics and stuff to make it pretty easy to display. So, for example, you can see this is on page 6, and this shows the Nintendo Switch users, which now has crossed 127 million people. That's pretty impressive. Just like overall, just exceeding 100 million is already impressive. They exceeded 100 million back in like the end of 2021 just about. So they are rolling along here. They continue to build up users, which is very, very important, obviously, in this day and age with monthly active users and stuff. However, something a bit odd happened here. Their NSO users went down. So they're at 34 million. When I saw that, I said, that feels like it's either stagnant or has dropped a bit. They actually say that it has. And they say the reason for that year-over-year decrease in membership is partly due to fewer new releases in the past year focusing on online play. Remember, that is an important thing for Nintendo right now. They're mostly relying on their first-party output, even to hold up their multiplayer side with their subscription service. So they say they are getting more and more people to convert to the higher tier Switch Online expansion pack, but still it is noticeable that they have shed some of their users here, seemingly because just a lack of releases, according to them. Now, here's where things get a bit interesting for their strategy, though, I think, going into next generation, because this is all stuff, as we know, with development cycles that would take multiple years, but they say strengthening relationships with software publishers. This on page 24. And a lot of this has to do with them establishing a Nintendo Developer Portal, a website dedicated to developers and publishers, support for numerous middleware like Unity and Unreal Engine, and release of affordable development kits. All this is stuff they've done throughout this Switch life. But then going forward, they mention, as they're strengthening relationships with software publishers, a number of them, which it's funny enough, Microsoft is on there, but like you can see Sega's on there, Konami, From Software. I mean, these are studios that, as they themselves mention here, are some that they only got to know when they released software for a Nintendo platform for the first time with the Switch, as in, hey, we've just recently started working with many of them, and clearly they're pretty happy because they show things like this on page 27, where it's a significant amount of software publishers actually showing sales volume, even comparative to Nintendo's own first-party output. So, what does this mean? Well, Nintendo obviously sees that there is opportunity there with third parties for the Switch platform, but also going into next generation, and going from the Wii U to the Switch, it's very, very clear that third parties weren't going to take a heavy risk with Nintendo's new system after the Wii U, and that's why when it first came out, if you remember, the eShop had like 5 or 6 titles like ready to go. It wasn't a lot. You had some third-party stuff, but it wasn't overwhelming or anything. With the next system, you better believe third-party companies are going to show up in force, and I think it's actually going to build up a pretty good first and second year for Nintendo with some third-party games that will probably surprise a lot of people, but also excite people, because the thing we've always said about Nintendo's platform is you want to get Nintendo for the first-party stuff and then have another system, because third-party games tend to show up like much more so on PlayStation, for example, right? But what if Nintendo got to a position where like all the third-party games came over and they played well enough? Like, we haven't had Madden or Call of Duty or anything like that on the Switch, but what if the Switch 2 got both of them? We already know Call of Duty showing up, maybe Madden, and EA goes big and just starts throwing everything on there. And then other platform, like maybe GTA eventually finds its way there, whether it's GTA 5, but maybe GTA 6. And that's where things get a bit interesting, because then it's like, okay, that's one of the big weak spots for Nintendo. But if they solve that by to focus on these third parties, then it's like, okay, well, why would you get anything other than Nintendo? Maybe you start looking at Sony as, oh, I want that for the first party Sony games, because the Switch 2 actually fits into my life a bit better since it's more convenient to take with me on the go. Something to consider there, but very clear Nintendo notices the third-party movement here on their platform. I think that's going to be a big focus for them going into next gen as a strategy. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about N7 Day, which was obviously yesterday, as it did bring us some cool bits of information, and like we had a download in Dragon Age Veilguard that gave us a new chest plate that was Mass Effect themed, which okay. But it also brought us headlines like this that gave me massive whiplash, which you can see says Amazon's Mass Effect series gets the green light with the Fast and Furious 9 writer at the helm. Okay, this is coming from Variety. That was I think that was Sports Illustrated, interestingly enough, with their headline. But from Variety, they say, a Mass Effect TV series is officially in development at Amazon MGM Studios. Variety has learned exclusively. Daniel Casey is set to write and executive produce the adaptation there from Fast and the Furious. Kareem Zarek will executive produce under his Cedar Tree Productions banner, with Ari Arad and EA's Michael Gamble also executive producing. Cedar Tree is currently under an overall deal at Amazon MGM Studios. Now, I think this is exciting just in general for Mass Effect fans, because it is nice after what happened with Mass Effect Andromeda, which was just disastrous. It is nice to see Mass Effect slowly start to build up the foundation for that comeback. Now, obviously, they can mess this up. After what I saw with Halo, anything's possible. Like, the Halo TV series was just... maybe we can eventually forget about that someday, but for now, it's still in the memory banks. But maybe, as we are seeing many other series do very, very well, this could be a good thing for Mass Effect with a live-action series, and we see Michael Gamble being in there. Maybe he can obviously set the path here forward for them and just help out. And we obviously know that there is a game coming up. I don't know if they're going to be able to set these side by side, but when you see something like Fallout in that series and what that did for that Fallout franchise in terms of the games and how all of a sudden it spiked so much interest in it, it makes me think that they can do the same thing with Mass Effect if they're able to turn in a decent enough series here with Amazon. Just the amount of people who pay attention to new series on Prime streaming is just, it's overwhelming at times. And this is something that I think Mass Effect really, really needs. After Andromeda, if they can come out with an awesome title for the next game, which, I mean, at this point, 2027, 2028, I think it's going to close out this generation, but that alongside with the TV series could be a massive resurgence, I would say, at this point for the franchise, and that's exciting. So we'll see how this one turns out. Again, it's going to be a little while, that and the game, but hopefully in a few years it all pays off for Mass Effect fans. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, if you played Death Stranding, did you enjoy it? Look at this. 51% say, yes, I thought it was good. 49% say they didn't like it. But this means the majority of people now say that they like Death Stranding, which I think means a lot of people have come around on the game, because when it first came out, it was quite controversial to like it. It was, I do think it took some time to really get into the game. Again, for me, it took more than 10 hours, I'll say that, to really have it click for me. But when it did, I ended up spending about 50 some odd hours my first time playing through it. And it was an experience. And it is one that I recommend everyone at least try out. But I went back when the PS5 version came out, the director's cut, and when I fired it up again, a lot of stuff was built out for me. They had roads and the slingshots, and there were like stations that regen your bike everywhere, and it was so fun to get around. But it also made you go, oh, okay, this is the Strand system. I get it now. Everyone building literal roads to get around, but kind of working together, just side by side, just not exactly in each other's world directly. It was a really cool thing. So yes, I do recommend checking it out, especially since now apparently the majority of people like it. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as we're seeing here. This is from Todd, who says, the Switch 2 being backwards compatible makes me more likely to upgrade early, since it means that I will still be able to keep and play my Switch games on it. Nobody is out there looking to buy a console because it can't play old games. They're looking to buy it because it can play new ones. I mean, look, I think if you look at it from the investor's point of view, they're like, hey, you guys have sold a lot of those Wii U games as Switch titles, and they actually sold with what I have to assume is a very low budget to get them over. Can we do that again? I mean, I don't think it was exactly like that. Like, oh yeah, let's see if we can swindle these consumers one more time with that mentality. But I think the idea is, let's not make this thing too Switch-like, because we want people to differentiate it as a new generation. I think Nintendo will do that. Like, I don't think that's gonna be a problem for them necessarily communicate that fact, even though they slipped up pretty badly with the Wii U. I like to think that they learned something from that, and they will be prepared to showcase how this is essentially a breakaway from the Switch, while also apparently maintaining that audience of Nintendo Switch Online users. So it is going to be an interesting thing to see Nintendo present, but one thing's for sure, they've taken their time here. So here's hoping when that trailer drops and they're ready to actually talk about the thing, they're actually ready to talk about the thing. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card, or maybe you wanted to see a quick unboxing for the PlayStation 5 Pro, I'll leave that right below it. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.